Okay, everybody, I've got a very special guest today, the specialistest guest in my life. This is my wife, Kimberly, who is my best friend in the whole world and also my number one enemy. I'm just kidding. No, she's my favorite person in the whole world. And honestly, I asked her to come on and she said yes, which was surprising. And then really, I wanted Kim to come on to share because I think she has a lot of experience in some of the topics I would like to talk about. And she's lived with me a long time, 23 years now, the best 23 years of her life. So, and she can give us a little bit of perspective of what it comes to faith and fitness from a person who's not like obsessive like me, right? Because I'm like a machine. I'm obsessive about it. So I want to give people a female perspective to that as well, and a mom's perspective and all of that. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thanks. I think I'm not sure what I got myself into.
Don't worry, we can edit anything out.
Okay, good.
So even my poor sense of humor. So
Perfect.
but Kim, would you tell, just for people who don't know you, because you've never been on any of my stuff, you don't like social media very much. You don't like being the center of attention. That's true. Unless it's, picking on certain people, and then you
Yes.
love being the center of attention on that. But tell us a little bit for people who may be listening, a little bit about yourself, what you do, besides obviously being so madly in love with me. Just give us some information.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So yeah, we've been married 23 years.
Mhm.
I am a lover of LSU football. Go Tigers. I have one daughter. She's 13, and I actually really enjoy raising a girl. I was only able to have one. So I don't know what it's like to raise a boy, but I have really, really enjoyed being able to connect with like my daughter. That's really cool. I am a director for a nonprofit out here in the mountains of Utah, back there. And yeah, I mean, I work out. I try my hardest to, stay healthy, stay fit. Obviously, Adam, you've been a huge part of that. I tell the story pretty often of before I ever met you, it was like a thing, like for the college girls to pray for what they wanted in a husband. And so
I
one
remember
of the
that.
things that I prayed for was a husband that would, keep me fit, keep me working out, and look what I got. And so,
You're welcome.
yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. Did I miss anything?
No, you hit all the bases, babe.
Oh, good.
So,
Good.
but
Glad.
okay, so you're a director for a nonprofit. Like we were only able to have one child, which praise God for the one we were able to have. And I think honestly, that struggle is one of the things that really turned us on to health and fitness, if you remember.
Yep.
Because obviously I was working out, you were exercising as well. But when we got the news that they basically told us unless we had a miracle, we wouldn't have kids, if I remember properly.
Yeah, they said
Right?
0%
Because there were
chance.
issues on both sides, right?
Mhm.
And we'll get into why those probably are some issues. And but we were working out, I was coaching classes. You remember when we were coaching those silly
CrossFitting
classes? Well,
before
I was doing
CrossFit was
CrossFit,
cool.
which was like I was just perpetually tired and hurt for like those 6 years. And then you
It
remember
was
that.
fun though.
I remember being so tired during those days that just smelling coffee in the morning gave me
Would
like a
wake you up.
sense of purpose. I remember that. But when we got the news that we were having trouble having kids because we had been married almost 10
9
years.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5 years when we
9 years.
started like
Yeah.
finding out, like asking questions, like what the heck. And then that took us to, I remember you came in with Jordan Peters, not Jordan Peters, Jordan Rubin's book,
Yeah. Wait, is
The
that his name?
Maker's
Jordan
Diet.
Rubin? The Maker's Diet.
The
Yeah,
Maker's Diet.
I had to go to a conference in, I think it was in LA. Um, like anyway, some women's conference, and he randomly was speaking there, and he was like started his whole session, and he showed pictures of himself before and after,
You look
and
horrible.
he
Boy, it was
said he
rough.
had, I mean, I can't remember how
It was
many number of illnesses.
19.
19. He had all these diagnoses, and he looked, I mean, he kind of looked like a refugee. Like he looked awful. You know, you could tell that he was sick. And then his after, obviously, he's standing on the stage and he looks like a different
Hmm.
person. And so he was really the one that started us on that path of what are we putting in our bodies?
Hmm.
Why are we putting this stuff in our bodies? Like really starting to educate ourselves on ingredients, basically,
Yeah.
and what we're consuming.
Yeah. We went down that road. Kim went hard down that road.
I
She was like,
did.
I'm never eating shrimp again. And I'm like, but
I
we're
know.
Cajuns,
But I
you
did.
know.
And I didn't eat like ham. I didn't eat shellfish. I didn't eat
I was smashing shrimp po' boys. I was like, I can't
true.
deny my roots, you
That's
know.
true.
But
I like read every ingredient on
mhm.
every single thing we bought at the grocery store. I mean,
Yeah,
I think I finished his book in like 2 days.
you did. We went down
Mhm.
that road for probably a year, like hard for a year,
Yeah.
and then we kind of I started researching, and I kind of got into the whole paleo movement,
Yep. We
right?
did paleo.
And then I think from there, um, I'm not even sure if we healed our problems or if God just had mercy on us because we were working so hard. Probably a
Mm-hmm.
combination of the two,
Mm-hmm.
which refers to some of the things I was talking about in a previous podcast entitled "Grit, Grace, and Grit." Like you're
Mm-hmm.
living by grace, but you got to have the grit to keep trying to push forward.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember it was like 5 years, and we were about to go on vacation. We were doing
No, we had
paleo.
been married 9 years.
Yeah, 5 years after we had
Oh,
been,
oh, oh, oh. Yes. Sorry.
almost 5 years after. It took 4 years of changing our diet,
Yeah, trying to
changing our
figure this out.
lifestyle,
Yeah, yeah, you're
sleeping
right.
more. Like I remember I was coming home to take naps and stuff.
Yep.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, like finally, um, I don't nap well. Feels like
Nope.
a waste of time. But,
Yeah.
and I remember we were about to go on vacation to Turks and Caicos,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you saw
Yep.
Turks and Caicos on Wheel of Fortune.
Why you got to sell me out like that?
Wheel of Fortune's
You know
freaking
I'm
awesome.
like uncultured.
Pat Sajak, let's go. Vanna White.
Vanna was like, see,
Oh yeah. And
I
you
was
were
like,
like, that place looks
we're
beautiful.
going there.
So we
Yeah.
did. And the
Yeah.
day before we left, you had a positive pregnancy test, right?
I did. I did. Like the night before we left. And I
And
remember the kid at Walgreens, like I went and got the first one, and it was positive. I drove back to that Walgreens and got the second one, and he was like, are you okay? I
we're like,
was
I
like,
can't read so good.
so technically the cashier at Walgreens was the first to know.
Yeah, well, praise God for that kid.
Right.
But anyway, so I remember that I just very specifically remember that because it started us on this journey of we were already doing the stuff. We were working out hard. We were pushing ourselves, but we probably weren't educating ourselves very well. And I feel like that step forward in educating ourselves for whatever reason, like God honored that, but then also our bodies responded well to that, and we just started. We got one baby, and we've had miscarriages and stuff since then, so the story is not all positive. But I think that the reason I wanted to talk about that is because there's a lot of history that goes into maybe why we were having trouble having kids.
Okay.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, it depends on which road you want to go down.
Well, okay, we talked about this before.
Yeah.
The kind of There's a lot of buzzwords around the word trauma right now, and a lot of people are claiming trauma is, something like
Anything
the
and
Wi-Fi's
everything.
out and I was traumatized.
Yeah.
Like half the stuff people are calling trauma is just being a human being, and somebody disagreed with you or called you the
Mm-hmm.
wrong pronoun. First of all, why do you have pronouns? Second of all, who cares? You know what I mean? That's not trauma. Um, Trauma is something, literally things that rewire your brain and rewire your body to some extent. And
Yes.
so the reason I wanted to bring that up, and I asked Kim's permission for this, is because many people who go through trauma have trouble having kids, and then health becomes a real issue. And I have been working with people long enough to know many people are not lazy. Many people are not just destined to be fat and sick. Many people really want, and believers want to be healthy, and they're having faith in many areas of their life, but they may be avoiding dealing with some things that might have happened before that could be roadblocks or obstacles that you're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other people like me who work with people and help with being more trauma informed so that you can continue to move forward in life. But I wanted to open it up a little bit for you, Kim, because one, there's the fertility issue that comes with that. And then there's the being able to take care of yourself, like invest in yourself part of that. Would you be willing to kind of talk about some of that? Maybe a little bit of as open as you want to be. Nobody, I think it's more just putting it on the table that having gone through traumatic experiences is not
Yeah.
just something in the past, it's something you carry into the future with you if you
Yeah.
don't deal with it. So,
Yeah.
and it can affect
So
a
do
lot
you
of
want,
areas.
do you want, you want like kind of like background story?
If you feel
Yeah.
comfortable giving some of that,
Yeah. 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 No worries.
okay.
So I would say that, um, um, this sounds very cliche-ish, but there's a whole lot of truth to it in that, like, your childhood really does determine a lot
Hmm.
of how you respond to life,
Hmm.
whether knowingly or unknowingly.
Hmm.
And so I was abused sexually as a child by people that will remain unnamed. And I kind of closed that off and shut that down. And then I went through, my high school years with an eating disorder. Um, in college, I was assaulted not once, but twice. So imagine getting yourself in that scenario twice. And, made some really poor choices. I mean, you're just totally on a self destruction kind of wavelength and got myself into some really bad scenarios after those incidents happened in
Hmm.
college. I really didn't understand, why am I acting this way? What in the world am I thinking? Because this isn't who I am, like on the inside. And so, but I couldn't stop myself. Fast forward a little bit, I get saved. I meet Jesus, complete miracle of how he turned my life around.
Hmm.
Complete different person from before and after.
Hmm.
And I got started in the ministry. I was working with at-risk kids and, all that kind of stuff, and, married and just kind of living life. And I had Zoe. And then the very moment that Zoe was brought into this world, and I told Adam this, something happened. Not like, oh, something happened and now I'm a mom and this is wonderful. But some kind of weird switch went off in my head, and I wasn't the same at all. Like, I was not okay. I wasn't the same. Super, super high levels of anxiety, extremely depressed. We ended up moving overseas. While we're overseas, and I didn't know what anxiety was. I had no idea what it was, as a matter
I
of
didn't
fact.
either. I could tell you were upset, but I was like,
Yeah.
let's go
I
work
mean,
out.
it was to the place of where, like, I actually couldn't talk because it was so overwhelming. And so, poor Adam walked around that house and in Africa for a good, 11, 12 months talking to himself because I wouldn't respond, or I was just so heightened and he would like touch me. And if like, not like touch my shoulder, whatever the case may be, I would throw up
Mhm.
because my body couldn't handle anything. And so I had no idea what was going on until I ended up, when we moved back to the States, I went to a counselor and I told her, hey, listen, I'm having these really weird dreams. And these dreams have turned into full blown memories of something happening when I was younger. And, and so I asked her, I told her, I said, something's wrong with me. Like, who dreams about this stuff? Who makes this stuff up? Like, I'm a disturbed individual. Why
Mhm.
in the world am I coming up with these things? And she said, honey, that's not how this goes.
Mhm.
So I started down this whole path of trying to figure out what these dreams and memories really meant and, unfolding all of it. And long story short, basically, I always knew something was wrong, but I could never really put my finger on it,
Mhm.
uh, until I went through this whole journey of trying to heal. And I discovered, obviously there was some pretty atrocious abuse in my childhood that I had just shut down somehow. And these things became very, very vivid memories that you have to learn how to process. And so it was 10 years of, like, literally 10 years of walking this out. I mean, there were
Mhm.
days where, I mean, I couldn't get out of bed, and I'm a very high capacity, driven individual. So I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. Like, Adam would have
Mhm.
to pick me up off the floor a lot of the times. Or if I was in the shower and then like something would hit me, I mean, I'm just like laying on the shower. He would have, pick me up out of the shower. And,
Mhm.
there were so many things. I mean, I didn't know. There were days when I was like, I don't think I'm going to live. Like,
Mhm.
not like I'm going to hurt myself, but I really just don't think I can physically withstand the pain and torture of everything that's coming out.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, and people were in our lives in and out at this time, and really nobody knew. And so, nobody knew that I was, rocking in a corner at my house, and nobody knew what Adam was walking through as well. I mean, I can't imagine being married to somebody for 10, 12 years, and then all of a sudden this person can't function
Mhm.
and you have to pick them up off the floor.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so that was, that was 10 years of my life. And I finally got to a place where, you know, if you research this kind of stuff, it actually will say that it takes about 10 years to heal from trauma, like a
Mhm.
deliberate working it out.
Mhm.
And I just thought, well, that's ridiculous. How can anything take that long? And then when I hit that 10-year mark, I was like, oh, no,
Science.
yeah, that was kind of real deal legit. And but I do remember, like, I still wasn't myself. I still
Mhm.
felt like a little broken. Kind of reminds me of Britney Spears in the early 2000s with the shaved head. It was like, I think I might have been broken by this whole
You weren't
this
dancing with
whole
knives in your
scenario.
underwear, but
Right. And so I just remember, I started praying again. I hadn't
Mhm.
prayed
Can we talk
in a
about
long
that? Can we talk about how the realization of some of this stuff affected your faith,
time.
affected how
Mhm,
you could care for yourself,
mhm,
how you could care for others,
mhm,
because I mean, for a long time there, I mean, you had a tough go of it. So I think one thing that is very encouraging about your story, Kevin. That's why I'm asking you to share it, is because I think some people are in the midst of this kind of thing, either on lower levels, and they don't know that they're in the midst of it. They don't know why they're freaking out. They don't know why they can't function. They don't know why they just can't get the energy to take care of themselves or whatever. And my goal in talking about this is not to, you know, have some huge, deep conversation, but to start shedding light on there's maybe some stuff going on in the background that we need to be aware of, right? And I would like to know, like, how did that affect your faith? How did that affect your, when you started being able to come out of it, to some
Yeah.
extent?
Yeah. So I remember when we moved back from Africa,
Hmm.
we had our daughter and we would always do bedtime with her. Like we would pray and do all that stuff. And I remember, when we got back, you were praying for her one night, and it was the most real feeling that I had. And it was that you were praying to an imaginary person, that this isn't real. There's no way that I have laid down my life to do ministry, move to another country, and there's this loving God out there, apparently, and this is where he leaves me,
Mm,
like this. And so I was like, I don't, I literally, it wasn't like, oh, I'm mad at him and he's not real. It literally, the feeling was, this can't be true.
mm,
Okay, so now what do I do? Right. And
mm,
so I told God at that point, I don't know, however long later, if you're real, you're gonna have to prove yourself to me,
mm. I remember
and
that.
and he did. But one thing that I learned post everything, I remember sitting outside when we lived in Memphis. I remember sitting outside in the backyard because I was really still wrestling with that of how can a loving God allow this to happen? And what I what I learned, what I realized is that he didn't allow anything to happen.
Mm,
He saved me from what happened. Like
mm,
I was born into a broken world.
mm,
That's not his fault. I was born into a place where adults abuse children.
mm,
That's not his fault either. That's the decision that we as humans made. He offered me a way out.
mm. It's beautiful.
And so it was a hard road,
Yeah,
but he offered me a way out. Like he didn't do that to me. He got me out of it.
I love that. So now that you're past it, and I know God did a miracle in your life, I remember the day. Um, how did you start working back into having faith and taking care of yourself and, because you're like a different person from when we got married to when you had Zoe, you were one person. And then after Zoe until like 2 years ago, a year and
Yeah,
a half, 2 years ago.
2021.
Yeah, okay, 3 years.
Mhm.
You were a completely different person. And literally now you're like times 10 a different person, like 100% different person in the best ways possible. So, um, now that you've come through it, how did you start to integrate your faith and taking care of yourself? Like, all the things that make you, you, how did you
Mhm.
start doing that again?
Well, okay, just to clarify, like the different persons, because I don't, to clarify that, I would say like from the time I got married until I had Zoe, I was the person that was extremely troubled on the inside, but was taught that you push through it, you keep a smile on your face, you fake it till you make it, and you trust God. And you have problems because you're not praying enough.
That
And
sounds
so that
familiar,
was
right?
right, which that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I was that person. I was like holding on really hard, just trying to keep it all in. Right. So
Yeah.
it was that person. Have Zoe, that's the extreme broken, desperate
Yeah.
person this one, or since 2021, God totally touched me in that, in a moment. But this person, this is like the authentic, the one that was always on the inside, that I always knew was on the inside, but I just couldn't get to her.
Hmm.
Right. And so to clarify, those are the
But I
people are
think
going to
that
think
that'll
crazy after
resonate with.
this. You sure you want me on this? People are going to think.
No, this is look. I look. First of all, I don't care. This is our life, girl. I do not care. If people don't like it, turn it off. Don't
Yeah.
download it again. I don't care.
I would say that so one of the things that I had to do, like for people who are experiencing trauma, or they think something's not right on the inside, maybe I got something going on. Anybody on that journey, what I had to do is I really had to commit 100%.
Yes.
I couldn't be like, I'm gonna go to counseling once a week and then turn it off and I'm done. No, I mean, I dove head first into
Hmm.
that world, like counseling a lot, always reading. I would write things out. I was always researching. I was always just trying to figure this thing out to really like get in touch with what was going on so I could speed up the process, but it still took 10 years. But yeah, so that's why I think I'm very much so in touch with the inside because it was shut off for so long.
Yeah. And I think that that would resonate with some people, especially ladies, maybe men too, where you know that you have this authentic you on the inside, but you just can't get to them,
Mhm.
right? Like because I deal with people in fitness so much, I see people who want to have like a vision for who they want to be, but they can't find that, they can't
Mm.
touch that authentic person first in order to start guiding that, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
like, I'll talk about having a vision for your health and having, a vision for where you want your fitness to be and stuff like that. And I can see it. Some people's eyes glass over because there's
Mhm.
so much stuff in the way, and I don't think they even know it's in the way.
Mhm.
So maybe Kim, what are some maybe symptoms? Like, I know neither of us are clinical psychologists, neither of us are counselors.
Nope.
I'm going to have Dr. Andy Yarborough on, who's actual clinical psychologist, and he's going to
We
make
can
sure
straighten
that,
this all out.
yeah, he's going to basically be like, that was wrong. You're still messed up. I'm still like, this guy's messed up. Like, get him
Yeah.
medication, you know?
Yeah.
But from your experience and in your experience, and my story has twists and turns as well, which I may get into, I may not. Um, from your experience, what are some signs for people who might be dealing with some of these things and don't even know it?
Mm. Mhm.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So all I can do is just speak from my own personal
That's all we're
experience.
asking.
So one of the things that always stuck out to me is that I felt like I had all these issues that I couldn't figure out how to get over. Like, I was super controlling. Um, I got extremely nervous around people in authority, like would shut down and couldn't talk. So I just had, and there were several of them, like so many different, like, and I thought they were all one-offs. Well, this one is
Like
completely
isolated
separate.
issues.
Everything was isolated, but uh, at the end of the day, everything was connected to the one thing. And so I would say maybe one of the things to consider is if you've gone around this mountain again and again and again and again and again and again, and you're not getting anywhere, there's most likely something tied to it.
Hmm.
Like if you're not moving forward in a certain area that you've been working on, there's something deeper going on.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. So I would say that's one of the main things.
Yeah, like even for me, I try to share as much as I can. Um, I have my own stuff, and I meet with a counselor regularly and do therapies that some people would be like, what is he doing? But because at the end of the day, the goal is to be who God created you to be, not who this world is trying to create you to be, and your circumstances have done. So you got to use everything at your disposal, within reason,
Mhm.
to fight tooth and nail for the life God's promised you, right? So, like even for me, like I keep going around the mountain of, I'm not good enough to do this thing. I can't do this thing, or I just, you're not valuable enough, or, and a lot of men have that, because one thing, and you could agree, or you could disagree with me if you think, Kim, but when girls are, this is my opinion, when girls are born, they're precious, they're princesses. You know what I mean? Like you come into the world like with the highest level of value. But I feel like when guys come into the world, we have to work our way up to that value. At least that's the way the world makes us feel. Like, what are
Mhm.
you bringing to the table? Can you provide? Can you lead? Can you fight? Are you strong? Are you aggressive but also compassionate? Are you, like we
Mhm.
have to be all these things. And
And
and go
I
ahead.
would say that girls, if they are brought into this world as at a certain level, like, you're valued or whatever, but then we have to do things to make sure that we stay there,
Yes. It's
you
like
know.
girls have to retain their value, men have to earn their value.
Yes. And if you don't retain it, you're irrelevant.
Right, exactly. So for me, because of the things that I've been through, it's like it's always a value thing. It's always a
Yeah.
capability thing. And
Yeah.
like I'm pretty much do anything I put my mind to,
Yeah.
right? But
Sure.
somehow I keep going around that mountain, right? So I had to start seeing a counselor
Yeah.
to work through that thing.
Yeah, because
So,
there's always like whenever you go through actual trauma, like
yeah,
life altering, your brain is rewired, you've got to like process things because when you have trauma that's unprocessed, don't quote me on which side of the brain, but it's one of them. It actually gets stuck in one side of your brain, Dr. Andy, I'm sorry, but it gets
it's
stuck on one
the
side is it the left?
it's okay. People who are left-handed use the right side of their brain, which is the
Uh-huh.
creative side.
Okay.
Okay, right-handed people use the left
We're gonna
side,
mess this all up.
which is the analytical side.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I think it's the right side it gets stuck in, which is like memory-based
That would make sense.
imagination.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
relive it in your imagination,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So
I think
technically it gets stuck in one of these sides, and that's not how your brain is supposed to function, right? And so you have to actually like process it out and get it to move over to the right place in the brain and all this other stuff. But anytime that you deal with trauma, anybody who has struggled with trauma, like there's all these underlying beliefs that are at the root of it, like how you said, I'm not valuable, I'm not lovable, I can't, this world is an awful place, I can't trust anybody. So we all have these underlying beliefs that will keep you like hitting the same wall again and again and again. You can't overcome it because you have an actual belief on the inside of you that says that you can't overcome it because you're
hmm
not valuable enough, because you're not lovable like everybody else.
hmm
And so yeah, sorry I interrupted, but
No, 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 no. That's perfect because I think that I know like the fitness side of things. I always come back to that because
yeah.
that's just my world. That's where I feel
Yeah.
most comfortable. But it's also in our faith as well, where you know if you're constantly having to trust, if you're constantly having to convince yourself that God loves you, or you're
Yep.
constantly having to convince yourself that God actually is working on your behalf, or
Yep.
that He's gonna come through for you, or that you don't have to earn your salvation, right, by the
Mhm.
way you act or the things you do. Those things could possibly be tied to some traumatic messaging that you've received, when you were younger. That all your value is based on what you produce or how you act or whatever. So but the big reason why I want to talk about this is because I think it's a specter in the church. It's a shadow in the church that we don't like to talk about. And I think a lot of pastors try to talk about it, but they're just uneducated in it
Mhm.
in some extent. And I don't mean that in like a negative sense, because uneducated just means not educated in that area. It doesn't mean stupid in every
Right.
area. It
Yeah.
means
Yeah.
in that topic, there's lack of education.
Yeah.
So And I think that many Christians battle with trauma and things like limiting beliefs on the inside that are stopping them from pushing forward in whatever area they want, whether it's their fitness or in health or leadership or being a mom, being a dad, your business, whatever it is. And it's because you think you're not good enough, but it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with these internal limiters that you don't even know are there, right? So it's like buying a brand new sports car, but they didn't tell you that only 3 cylinders fire out of the 8. You
And
know what
that's
I mean?
what
Like,
happens.
exactly.
That's 100% what happens is whenever you've gone through trauma, you're not, you are extremely limited because it's almost like a computer. Like you've got programs running in the background that you aren't aware of that are still trying to work this thing out. Or these programs are still trying to protect you from all these dangers that you might encounter in the world. Or, these programs are still kind of dictating your life a little bit, and you don't even realize it's happening,
Yeah.
because they've developed over time, as a response to what you've experienced.
And many
And
times they
so,
go unnoticed. Like you don't know you have this thing. So like, for instance, for me, like if I struggle with, like, if Kim says, and you know this about me, if Kim says, I don't like that you're doing this, I don't hear she doesn't like that thing. I hear she doesn't like me,
Mhm.
right? Like she'll be like, I don't like the fact that when, we're picking up at night, you disappear and go sit down somewhere, right? Because I do that. Because once my stomach is full, I'm like, I'm going to digest like a lion on the prairie. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to sit and digest. I'm just going to chill for a minute. And she'll be like, where are you? I'm cleaning these dishes. So, but if she says, hey, I don't like that you do that, many times I won't think she doesn't like me leaving her to do the job by herself. That's not what I hear. I hear you're not a good enough husband when you do that. So be a better husband by doing this thing. And I'm like, I have to question that thought, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So it's not questioning what Kim's saying, it's questioning what I'm hearing, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
learning that those limiting beliefs are in there and it's not other people making you feel that way
Mhm.
by what they're saying to you now. It's what you experienced before that's conditioning you to respond that way,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
So,
it's the whole like rose-colored glasses
yes,
scenario.
that's a great song.
Oh yeah.
These rose-colored glasses.
Who
Sorry.
sings that?
Who is that?
I don't even know if I know that song.
You've never heard that rose-colored glasses? I'm
No, I
playing
know
it
a
for
song
you
about
right after this.
I know a song about beer goggles, but I don't know anything.
Beer goggles. That was all of college. What are you talking about? Beer goggles is when you drink so much anybody's attractive.
That's right. That's right.
But then you take them off in the morning and you're like,
Yeah. We won't go there.
anyway. So I think that the reason I love this topic, and it's taken us a long time to get to the place where we can talk about this, is because dealing with this has literally changed our lives.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
like we are different people,
It's put us on a different plane.
completely different path. And nobody here is saying, "Oh, we're done with that old trauma therapy." We're always we're always in the work.
Mhm.
We're always doing the work. We're always working to be better or deal with those things. But I think that many believers are living a, a partial life
Mhm.
because Jesus said he came to give life and life abundant. So not just the life you have, but overflowing life. And I think many of us are settling for like 2/3 of a life.
If that.
Yeah, I'm being generous because we have this stuff in us that we're told you're just supposed to pray about, or you're just supposed to go to the altar about, or you're supposed to take communion and repent, and all those things are beautiful and all those things are great. But I think there's something that happens whenever we, with the Holy Spirit and the help of a good counselor, allow God to really get in there and start digging around. You know what I mean? Like Like I remember somebody was praying and referred to the heart as like a house.
Hmm.
Okay. Because in the book of Revelation, Jesus says, was that you that said it?
I think it was Elise.
Probably. So
Hmm.
I think in the book of Revelation, Jesus says, I stand at the door and knock, and he who lets me in,
Hmm.
and in means here,
Hmm.
because he don't come into your house, he comes into you. So he who lets me in, he says, I will sup with him. I will have dinner with him. Right? So I'll sit down, have an intimate meal, and actually be a guest in your home.
Hmm.
But I remember thinking through it and realizing that, yes, I've asked Jesus into my life, but I've only allowed him into the kitchen.
Right.
I never allowed him into my bedroom. I
Hmm.
never allowed him into the closet in my bedroom where I hide all the stuff,
Hmm.
right? Or where I'm scared to go personally. So,
Hmm.
and I think that part of this process is a faith and fitness thing because it takes faith to allow God to come in. And when he does his work, you actually become healthier. You
Hmm.
become fitter on the
Hmm. Yeah,
inside, right?
he is like he is the best house guest.
I know, right?
Right? Like he's not going to go anywhere you don't invite him into. He's not going to point out anything that maybe you should have picked up, and he's not going to do any of that. He's going to wait for you to be ready
Mhm.
to explore the other rooms.
Yeah.
And whatever you discover, he's not going to think twice about it.
Yeah.
It
He's
doesn't
not going to
bother
judge
him.
it. You're going to judge it.
No. Yeah,
That's
it
what,
doesn't bother him. He wants
yeah.
he wants to uncover those things with you.
Yeah. I love that. And again, our lives have been so different from this,
Mhm.
from just doing this work. And I'll be honest with you, it's the hardest thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what nobody
Yes.
says. Some people are like, doing, this is no, man.
Yeah.
The scariest thing you will ever come up against in your life is you
Yes.
and who you are and what you really are on the inside. And then you stand there and you let Jesus' light shine on it and you really pray he doesn't reject you,
Yeah.
right? That's scary.
Mhm.
So, but because we know he's so good, he'll never reject you. But you have to have the grit to get through it.
Yes.
You have to want your faith to explode in who he is and your health on the inside and outside to explode with abundance. And that's the only thing you can want during that time because nothing else will get you through it.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I thought, like you said, you thought you might die. I'll
I
be
did.
honest, I thought I might kill myself
I
a few
did.
times.
I understood that scripture that says when you've done everything that you know how to do, just stand
Mm,
and stand firm. Because I remember one night in the kitchen, I think I was doing the dishes like during that time, and I was thinking, I wish that I could handle this whole season better. Like I
mm,
wish that I could, because by this time like I knew God was God, but I didn't really understand how to connect with him because of everything. But um, and so I was thinking, I really wish I could have done better
hmm
up to this point in this season. And I remember like the Holy Ghost just kind of whispered to me, and he said, when you've done everything that you can do, all you got to do is stand, and that's what you've done. You've been standing,
mm.
and I'm just doing the rest. And so like that's when I knew, like,
I love that.
yeah,
I love that. So
like
let's
just
think about this,
accept
Kim. No, I mean, we're still on the journey, and we're still married.
that. I think that's the
We had plenty of chances to call it quits, you know?
yeah, I mean, true story.
True story. I remember
Yeah,
when we
it's
were going
hard.
through it, at one point you told me, you need to leave me. And I told you,
I did.
you will never say that again to me. Like I
Yeah.
fussed at you.
But I
But
meant it. I was like, no,
no,
really, like you
100%.
should do yourself a favor. You should leave because this ain't okay.
Yeah.
and you
But
didn't.
but that's the whole thing is that even when it's darkest, God's going to bring you through. He's going to
Mhm.
pull you through. If you just don't quit.
Yeah, just stand.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a, I want to encourage people who are listening that, yeah, this is heavy. I don't care. Um, because life is heavy. I mean, if
Mm,
you, all you got to do is read anything about that Jordan Peterson writes,
I
and
know.
you know what I mean? Like he said, life is suffering,
Mhm.
and dealing with life is,
100%.
and the way to get through life is perseverance only.
Yep.
Right? So I want to just encourage people that if you're struggling in some of these areas, you're having these recurring issues, these recurring thoughts, these recurring problems, either getting yourself straight, like engaging with your own health, engaging with your own prosperity, your own flourishing, or you live in fear of certain things and it's inexplicable to you, then
Mhm.
there may be some things you're not dealing with or don't know are going on the inside, and you need to
Mhm.
seek out a real professional. Well, first you ask Jesus to show you. You ask
Mhm.
Jesus to show you because if he starts showing you, you'll be like, I'm just going to go straight to the counselor. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
rather than having to have a counselor explain, like convince
Which,
you.
can I just talk about counselors for a second? Because people,
Yes,
so taboo. It's gotten better. It's gotten a lot better. But it's so taboo. Like, oh, you see a counselor. Like, what's wrong with you?
a lot.
Nothing. Like nobody taught me how to live this life.
Hmm.
I'm doing the best I can with the tools that I have, like just with Jesus. But a counselor comes along and they give you more tools,
It's just
right?
like
They're
hiring a coach. That's all
totally
it is.
like hiring a coach. Yeah. I mean, and also, if I have cancer, I'm not going to go to the vitamin shop. I'm going to go to somebody who knows what they're talking
You
about.
need some ginkgo biloba.
No, so if you really have like heart, mental, any kind of it, go see a professional. Like, don't
Yep.
take a vitamin.
Yeah, and it's not a lack of faith to see a professional.
Exactly.
It's actually a step of faith
Step of faith.
because it takes more strength to go and talk to a therapist than it does to sit in your room and pray about it.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Because you got to be vulnerable. You got to be
You got to talk to people,
honest.
you got to be vulnerable, and you
Who
got
wants
to
to do
admit
that?
that you don't have the answers, right?
Yep.
And then the Christian faith, we take it as an indictment on our faith that I
Yeah.
might need help other than the Holy Spirit, or I might need
Yeah.
help other than
Yeah.
God or the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be honest with you, your church probably has a professional in there
Go
who
see
you
them.
can trust, who
Yeah.
understands your context.
And I'm sorry.
No, go talk.
And what you mentioned earlier about, pastors trying to touch on the whole thing of trauma,
Which is admirable.
which is extremely admirable and it most definitely needs to be done. The one thing I would say though is even that pastor needs to be informed
Hmm.
by a professional
Hmm.
before you get on a stage and start messing with people who have been abused as a child, who, have been assaulted, who wasn't raised with a father, whose mom died when they were 3. You really want to get a professional to speak into that, right? To give you the tools to have more empathy for those people and more insight into their lives before you just get up there with no knowledge whatsoever or very little knowledge. I mean, you can really point people in the wrong direction and you
Yeah.
can really make people think like you could perpetuate that whole cycle of, well, I'm just not like everybody else and I'm never going
Mm.
to be this. And,
Yep.
really got to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's a very sensitive subject, and it's a professionally needed subject. Like you need to be a professional
Yes.
in some sense.
Yeah.
Neither of us are professionals in this area, but we are certainly professionals in our own experience. Like
Yeah.
we are very sure of what our experience has been and what
Yeah.
God has done for us, what our counselor has done for us, what our friends who have been through this type of stuff have done with us and helped us with.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage anybody. We're going to start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
I just
Sorry.
want
I
to
know you had like
encourage.
fitness questions. Sorry.
What's that?
I know you had fitness questions. So I'm
No, I
sorry.
mean, fitness. I would like, well, let's just talk about it real quick. For
Uh,
you, because you came from this value issue, right? You
yep.
this thing really tore you up. Like you said, you were telling me just leave because
Yeah.
it's gonna be better for you. And I was like, you know, so like you're my girlfriend. So, um, but now what does taking care of yourself look like? Now what
Mm,
does fitness look like for you? Like how has that changed since
yeah.
you were able to deal with these things?
I value my body so much more.
Mm,
I appreciate everything my body has been through.
wow, that's a good way to look at it.
I am very thankful for the strength that it had to carry me through
Mm,
those times. Um, I am, I see myself in a different light. I don't see myself as somebody who came from a place that was dark and desolate and, you know, anyway, I don't see myself that way anymore.
mhm,
And so I want to, I want to honor what what my body has been through,
mhm,
but I also want to honor the fact that God gave me a second chance.
mm. I love that.
And because he gave me a second chance, I want to do everything I can to get every drop of life, of ambition, of health, of happiness, joy, family. I want to squeeze out every single thing because I did not think that it was possible to even be here in the first place.
Oh,
And so I take care of my body in the best way that I can. I'm always very aware. Like I don't lift weights 6, 7 days a week. There's no way I could, right? But I try to be very aware of, okay, I want to make it through the end, still kicking and screaming at the end.
yeah.
Like I'm not going down without a fight, right?
We know
I
that
just
about you.
right. And so I want to I want to prepare my body to make it for the long haul. I mean, it has gone through hell and back. And so I want to give it the chance that it deserves
Mm,
to
I love that.
have the life that it dreams of from here, like for the rest of my life.
Mhm,
Right. So this isn't like a, well, I'll reach a goal of only, being this weight and then I'm done. That's not it at all. It's a lifelong goal for me because I want to be around to see what else God wants to do.
I love that. And that's what I tell people all the time. It's like, it's going to be real hard to do what God asked you to do if you're laying in a sick bed, and
Mhm.
a lot of us are living on credit because
Yeah.
health is kind of like a credit, like an account.
Yeah. It
You
catches up with you.
you can add health,
Mhm.
but if you're not actively adding to your health, you're actively debiting that account.
Mhm.
And by
You
certain
know, if you
choices,
have
go ahead.
if you have unresolved emotional issues, your body is going to get your attention one way or another. You're going to get sick. You're going to not be able to sleep. You're going to, you know,
Wake up exhausted all the time.
your
And
body's
you're
trying to
sleeping
get your
like
attention.
normal. Yeah,
Yeah. You got to listen to it. You got to listen to your body. You got to take care of it. You got to, just be aware of of how God created you and how you need to function and how you need to operate. So yeah, no, your body's gonna, if you got stuff going on, it's gonna get your attention one way or
yeah.
the other.
So let's honor it, right? Let's listen.
Yep.
Let's listen to it. Let's honor it. Like Kim said, um, be thankful for it's gotten you this far.
Hmm.
but gratitude many times expresses itself in compassion and kindness. And so it might be time to put away some of those things you've been doing that are working against your health, see that counselor, start talking, and, working your way towards habits of health rather than habits of survival.
That's
So,
really
right? Because that's what most of us do. Most of us, our habits are habits of survival.
good.
I'm eating this because it makes me feel this way, and you're not asking why you feel that way.
Yeah.
But you're going to eat that thing, or you're going to drink that drink, or whatever. That's my thing. Like if I had my way, I would just drink alcohol. That's kind of how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So I can be as fit as possible, but still drink every night. If I'm not dealing with my stuff, constantly. So the big thing is 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20. He bought that body with his body. He paid for you with a price. So let's honor him and what we do with our bodies. And sometimes that honoring means getting to the bottom of some of that real pain and that real hurt, because your body's carrying that around to protect you. Like, the reason it's stuck in there and, stuck in different parts is so that you can function.
Yeah.
So it's carrying around like a weighted vest many times. That is all your, like, how people say you have baggage? That's a real thing.
It's a real
No, it's a
thing.
real thing. It's like you're carrying your bags
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
all the time. So imagine if everywhere you went, you put a 60-pound dumbbell in your backpack or your purse, and that's what you've been carrying. That's why you're tired all the time,
Hmm.
right? And you're rifling through your stuff. You're not sure why you can't find your keys. Well, they're underneath that dumbbell. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's all mixed up and it's in there, and you're not dealing with it. And all of that weight is taking a toll on you. So
Hmm.
one of the best things you can do to honor your body is start dealing with those internal blockages, and maybe get real honest with the Holy Spirit, real honest with a counselor, and let God start leading you down a path of healing.
Hmm.
And part of that is very difficult, but there's also parts of that are glorious, and they're a blessing, and you start living a real life.
Hmm.
So, Kim, thank you.
Hmm. You're welcome. We'll see what happens if like your followers like go down by like 10 grand.
It's a race to zero. It's a race to
Do
zero.
what?
Who cares?
Oh.
Like, seriously, I'm like, this is my account. I love you. You did great. I lived through a lot of what you're talking about. And
You
I
did.
know a lot of people are living through those things, and they
Yeah.
just can't tell people about
So
it.
sad. Yeah.
And
And you don't want to go around telling everybody.
no, of course not. Like, who
You
want
want to.
like who can handle the fact that you say, last night I was in so much anxiety I passed out in the corner.
Right. Right.
And, my wife had to come pull me out of the garage because I was
Hmm.
laying on the ground convulsing, or, like, some people might not be that extreme, but some people are like, you can't tell
It's the
people
real
that you're
deal.
drinking yourself to sleep every night
Yeah.
because you're a Christian, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way you feel on the inside is not compatible with the faith you have. And there's a reason why. And it's
Hmm.
because there's this blockage that you're not allowing God to get into. And we got to deal with that. So,
Yeah.
fitness is not always about muscles.
Right.
Fitness is also the ability to move and be flourishing in life and be who you are, be who God created you to be. It's
Yeah.
not about just having biceps, which are great, or nice glutes, which are awesome. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's trying to build a dump truck these days. I mean, I'm like, that's
Which I
great.
need to talk to you about my workouts you've been programming. I got
Why?
way too many. Too
No, there's a
many
reason I
glute
program your
exercises.
workouts the way I do. I'm trying to catch a little look from the side, you know what I mean?
People
I
at the
told you
gym
that
are
this
like,
morning.
okay,
You
enough,
you ran
enough.
back into the house this morning. I said, I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave.
So cheesy.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's like I'm 47, but I'm actually
Right,
14 years old.
right.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I'm hitting on you all the time. So,
yeah.
but I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your sharing with everybody. I hope we can do it again because I think it
Sure.
will resonate with a lot of people. And
Yeah.
I think it would be good to
Mhm.
maybe help people, encourage them into this journey because it's worth every bit of effort you can put into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for anybody going through anything of the sort, just know that you're not broken.
Mm,
You will get through it,
mhm,
and don't do it alone.
Very good advice. Okay. All right, Kim, I love you.
I
I'll
love
see you
you.
for dinner.
Okay. What you cooking?
Eat easy.
I
I love you.
love you back.